Thank you very much for coming along this morning for a session after the big dinner last night, and we had some great keynotes this morning. So now I'm going to hand you over to our next speaker. This morning we have Daniele Vicari, who's going to be talking about daily tech tools, key players in embedding the culture of good research data management practice in the student environment. Now, Dr. Daniele Vicari is a chemist and microbiologist. She has experience with managing research data in Brazil, USA, Switzerland and Australia. As an academic researcher, Daniele has maintained her passion for working in the tertiary education sector as a teacher, tutor and a mentor of students. With her extensive experience of training undergraduate and graduate students, she is currently supporting training and advising staff and student researchers in how to use the e-notebook and other digital tools to achieve best research data management practices at the University of Sydney. So please welcome Daniele Vicari. Thank you.
Hello, good morning everyone. And can you all hear me? Good? Okay. Welcome to the talk, and I really appreciate you come after the dinner yesterday. I'm going to talk about the tools that we have been using at the University of Sydney, and I will not go over because the challenge that everyone must also see at their institutions about research data management changing of culture, because we have my colleagues had talked about some of them already. But what I'm going to focus on is the training the students, how we actually train the students to become the best researchers in the future and complying with all the regulations and was creating a good practice of research data management. We have a situation that research students might be inexperienced and they normally are not given a lot of responsibility. They have short projects or they have minimal exposure to the context of really the data management, because some supervisors just give what they should do, the project, but they are not involved in really the research data management process per se. And I'm sure that some of the students will go to a great lab or to a great group of research. Sorry to say lab, it's just my biology or microbiology background. Or to a group where they will be exposed to a lot of open data or curation of data when they are collecting, and some of them will be not exposed at all. That it's very random. And you have situations where they don't really experience what is the research process. You also have students that will shadow senior researchers. They don't have their own independence in doing the research process. And we end up having a lot of people learning from old habits. If a researcher say, I am going to use a single note, and you have to come here every time that you have to make a note, go to corner X and make a note for your experiment. That's what they are told to do. That's probably what they will learn. But we really want to train our students, and we want to align with our strategy plan and really have a better research excellence. And this is I'm going to present to you some of the innovative approaches that we have been using in the University of Sydney. First, if you are not familiar with our electronic notebook, we really want to go as a digital annotation, curation of the data. The electronic notebook that University of Sydney is using is licensed with Lab Archives. And as you can see here, you have a page. All the files and notes are added to a page, what works as a layer for the context and narration. Probably as much as we recommend people, they should have descriptions or they should have all the process of the research together. But more than that now, when the research data has been compiled, it can be searched. You can type a word and you can find things in between the e-notebook. It's very important that people keep the raw data, or actually the work data that they are doing, as well as with the representation, graphics, outputs, and everything. And the e-notebook allows to be in one page, very well organized, all the raw data as well as the processed data. That will be very important in integrity and later on in IP or other types of audit trail. Not only that, you also have everything that is done on the e-notebook. It will be timestamped as well as author-attributed. That means that whatever people have contributed will be proven and registered. You also have a great feature where not only the last update is available, but all the versions that has been done on that entry. That will allow people to go back and review, see what was done before, and also, if they want, they can actually revert to the old version of the document. And as example here, I'm using an example from an honor student, and it's not only for the research data, but you can compile as well as the education side. You can have progress presentations. You can have information about inductions that they have been trained. It's a very well tool for compiling everything that students will be exposed to. Then, in general, you have 24/7 accessibility because it's a web browser platform, and you do comply with IP standards and other type of standards for audit trail. There is a great documentation in between students and supervisor communication, because if supervisor has made any comment, supervisor's name will be on the page. If students has done a very good process and annotating everything, there is no question he or she was doing a good job. And of course that you can have everything in one or few places. And in the end, the good thing is if a student finishes the project, it actually can export as a HTML offline copy, and they got everything, all the attachments, all the files, all the notation in one package. And not to touch in the security, because all the security protocols by the university has been checked. Now, the students here at the University of Sydney, although we are really recommending and trying to have most of the AGGI students as well as honor students, what we would say that is the research core, we also introduced the classroom edition. That means that students, since very early, are getting experience with an electronic notebook. And we already have 100 courses using the electronic notebook in their classes. It could be classes, practical classes, group discussion, a lot of types of courses. And that so far had reached 6,500 students. Here is one example where the electronic notebook was used for practical classes and in first year students. And that's a course that goes to 1,500. And all kinds of measures like chemistry, medicine, biology. There is a variety of students that are being exposed to a very good tool of management of their data. One thing that is very good is that as a student start using the e-notebook at the first years, it's continue being used in the years following, and a student could have 3 or 4 units of study in the same. They only open their account. They can navigate from one notebook to the other. That means that students go home, and if they are doing a homework from one discipline, and they remember something about the other one, they can actually go to another e-notebook discipline and just do the homework or do annotation, do something that is more integration. The students find that sometimes one unit of studies can contribute to their general knowledge or their assignments in other units, and everything is kind of easy to navigate. But also when they are, in this case was a lab experiment, they can just, as soon as they are producing the graphs in the lab, because it's in a web browser platform, they just add the information directly. If they get some output from a machine, they just upload in the internet. There is no, oh, I lost some things were not in the email, my friends didn't get the copy. There was no excuse because everything could be done in class. And then they can work out afterwards with the data. And you also have a genuine experience because the students can share their notebook among themselves. And because everything is registered now, they have, this was an example of a class that had a literature discussion, was a paper discussion, where each group of students were responsible for one question. And as you might be able to see, I don't know if I have a pointer here. As you're able to see, there are, each of them is one entry, and the contributions come from different students. And everything is registered there. There is no question who had done the work, who had done the contribution, and it's a really good experience in terms of group activity. We also have a good penetration in terms of having the research student. We are doing not only at the classroom, we are doing at the other level where besides the e-notebook, we go and we do presentations, we do workshops, and we give as much support as we can. And it's a very catered support. If a group works with a certain type of data, we go and we analyze what could be the best tools to be used at the university. That means we are creating a moment, and in terms of get a good communication, we have documentation, we are exposing them to compliance, but also we need to be training that students. Coming back to the training, because we think that training and preparing the new generation of researchers will be a better way of complying and embedding the research data management practice. And for that, we are preparing, we are working in doing online materials as well as introducing them to a research plan. I will show you the examples that we have been working with the honors students. We have done several, about more than, I think, 13 online tutorials right now, but we were fortunate enough to add at least 3 that we are it has been delivered already, and it has been used on the honors program. On science, the honors coordinator said that with us, they are working in having, if students, any research student should have a good practice of data management and at least give an idea what they are doing with their research. For that, we have delivered the online tutorials, and I will show you how it was done using Smart Sparrow. That's accessible by Blackboard. That means that anyone can go and have the access to the information, and that is attached to a honors project declaration that I will show you as well. First, I want to present to you the tool that we have been using for the online tutorials, like Smart Sparrow. Anyone here have seen Smart Sparrow before? No. Okay, I will go and then I'll give you some. It's a tool that allows you to do lessons that can be interactive, and you can adapt the lesson to whatever you want. And more important, you can customize the lesson. The lesson can be done as, like you can pop up information, and as soon as people progress through the lesson, when you are designing the lesson, you can create different paths. If you have someone that is, very knowledgeable in the area, they don't have to go through so much basic information. But if you have someone that struggles with some concepts, you also don't want to give them a very high and difficult context. And that allows you to cater your training for both of the audience. You can have someone that goes straightforward and get all the take-home messages, or someone that needs to go, in a more serious way. You can go and have different paths. And the way that you do that is creating this trap state. And I really wish I could have a pointer. Oh, I do have a pointer. Okay. Sorry. It doesn't work on the both. But you have this, what we call trap state. The trap state directs if a certain thing is selected, then you can have to another slide. But if you have a multiple choice, that is not only right and wrong. You can have 5 choices, but 2 of them are just obvious if people just guess it wrong. And 2 of them, it could be a trick question. They might get confused, but it was, a legitimate attempt. You can direct people in different ways. For the ones that just guess it, or the ones that have no idea what you are talking about, you could direct them to a information slide or to another question that would lead to go back and answer the question again. But for the ones that are just a little bit far from the right choice, you could give them a hint. There is a lot of ways that you could branch the answers and the path that any student would take on the tutorial. And here is one example that a brilliant PhD student had helped us to design one of the modules. This module is taking an approach that I never heard before, because I'm from Brazil, but it sounds that you have a very famous book, Choose Your Own Adventure. Kind of you can go, and then depending on what you do in the beginning, you end up in another situation. And that's what you do here. You have just few slides in the beginning where you will have been asked, what are you going to do with your data? Are you going to keep in a USB? Are you going to keep in the computer? What kind of tools you should use? And then you have, but what about if you have, what kind of information you are recording? Are you getting photos from a satellite? Or are you getting just a Excel output from a machine? Are you interviewing, getting surveys? There are different ways of data that people can be collecting. And remember, we're working with the entire university. It can be very diverse. But as people go and they select, and as they progress the online tutorial, then they are crossed with scenarios that I'm not presenting here, but it would be, one example would be, if you go to a conference and someone liked your data, you have an extra information that you can discuss with them, what you would do. And then the person, instead of answering the question, depending on the choices where they choose to organize their data, what type of things they were collecting, you would send up a message. You can't do anything because it's in your USB that it was forgotten in your pocket. It's not in online that you can have access. That are the types of scenarios that expose them to a real situations. And in the end, they can go from being completely like when you finish, you are all in trouble because you have everything to be organized yet, or you are very successful. And that kind of give a ludic way of the students to understand the daily research data management. It's not a very tedious thing, and hopefully they will think when the end, if they go to a conference, it would be better to have something that I could access online. But Can I have that in any cloud? Maybe not, depending on the type of data that I'm working with. The Smart Sparrow not only allows you to have these different pathways and different types of online tutorials, it also allows you to get an analytics analysis afterwards. And you can see one of the lessons, like students take median time of spend on the lesson as 6 minutes. 6 minutes is not that much. You know, we don't have a lesson that takes 30 minutes for them to grasp some of the concepts of the research data management. You also could see what questions they are having more problems with, if you need to adapt the lesson, if you need to give more focus on some part of the lesson. You could also see by what time they spend in each question, how they have done this, and you could analyze this by looking at each question. Do they have, you know, most of them were wrong, and then they have one type of choice versus the other. That allows you to redesign your tutorial. We also have a owner's declaration. We think that students are not well exposed to the research data management plan, and we have now a new policy that all the HDI students must have a research data management plan. But it's a lot of responsibility for someone that is just starting. But if we get them to understand the importance of the research data management plan with a simple form, that would give them a better idea what, how that could help them in the end. And that brings, just a simple form. We did an online survey that they can click, go to a link, and then we can collect the data. They answer just a few questions. It's just 2 pages, and that brings not only questions that will not be judging them, but highlighting what you should be thinking when you are doing, like what type of tools are you going to use on your research collection, but as well, have you talked with your supervisor about sensitive issues? And that should also work in a way of we can help them if we have problems, because we used a online survey, the RedCap, that is another tool that we support at the university, and that allows collect very quickly the data, because people can go just in an online survey and enter the data. But in a real time, we can identify what are the areas that has been problematic, you know, what kinds of things we need to concentrate when we go and give presentations around. And even better, we can monitor by faculty of the school. We can see what are the problems in each of the school, and then attack that as well. And give our ideas to give a constructive feedback. And the future work, what we really want to do is to have, and that's already being in place, it has been approved, a grant for an open learning environment. Now people, the university students at the University of Sydney at undergrad level can choose elective courses, and one of them that we are going to make available is about research data management. We expect with this that we will have a consensus, and then probably they will get better idea of what is open data, how to reuse the data, and also which are the best tools to be using. Okay, with that, that's just a summary of what we have been doing. I don't know if there is any time for questions. Okay, then that's, well, thank you.
We have about 5 minutes for questions, so has anyone got a question?
Yes.
With the notebook, when an undergraduate student leaves the university, can they still get access back to it, or do they need to download it and take it?
No, they have the option of downloading, but that will be a static copy. However, because the electronic notebook, you can also share with external, we recommend that the supervisor keeps the ownership of the notebook. That way, once the students leave the university and lose the UniKey or whatever, they can be invited with a new institution email or in a Gmail account or anything. but that would be still under the oversight of the supervisor that is in the university, but they can use the notebook as they were using before. Yeah, it's going to come from another account, but it's not, they can have access to the files, they can have everything. Yes?
This looks like a very good program of work to get RDN culture. Well, is it coordinated from any part of the university, or is it just your research group?
It was, it was, I mean, we really hope that people will take on board for everything, but that was our idea, and that's our way of getting more attention. Yeah, it's my research group. Yeah, yeah. We, of course, that we have. Yeah, sorry, I didn't explain that before. Yeah, yeah, because I'm not a researcher anymore. We have our team, and in our team we have the data stewards, and we are digital support to me and Helena, and a policy officer. And that was our strategy to reach for the researchers, for the students. But also has been backed up for several honors coordinator. They are the ones that, you know, they don't have any, like, they need to justify that their units are doing a good job, but what they do, they just provide the link, and then they will soon receive a report what they have been doing. But in terms of, they just need to give the students the channel to be able to be trained.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to present you a little chocolate to say
Thank
thank
you.
you. And